Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 73. What's it gonna be for you with Self-Tape Bay 2021? Today is part 2 with Arlene Schuster. That's Arlene Schuster over at ASG Casting. Part 1 was so great. The episode was too long for me to do it in one episode, so we did it in 2. And that episode, I don't know what you thought, but the first part is just so great, so informative. And this episode is no less fantastic and exciting. Today we talk about all sorts of things. We talk about eyeline, behavior, dressing for the role, using your space, more ideas of what to practice with Self-Tape May, all of those sorts of things. And I just want to shout out real quick to everyone in Self-Tape May. I am so inspired. Do you guys just like sit there and just feel so inspired watching everyone? Because I do. I feel like every single time I look and I see who's doing what and I look at all of the tapes and I'm so moved by all of the energy and enthusiasm and grit and passion that everyone has. I also want to shout out all of the international participants today. Holly Self-Tapes coming in from England. We got Peter Self-Tape May from Norway. We've got Lauren Bailey Actor coming in from Australia. We've got Lynn Self-Tapes coming in from Malaysia. We've got Chris I mean, she's been doing this for a long time. Coming in from Mexico, ChrissAnaid. Coming in from Mexico. Hola, she says. Hey, girl. Then we've got HMPYCTHS coming in from Canada, eh? We've got Jen Schaefer Self-Tape, also from Canada, eh? Then we have Romanian Bianca repping Romania. We've got Hazelnut at Hong Kong. Hong Kong, you guys, it's so cool. We've got Stephen Walker from Australia, he says, from Australia. We've got Self-Tapes by Megs coming in from Melbourne, Australia. You guys like my additions? I don't know. Are they terrible? Who knows? Fine. The Real Maria Jones coming in from Sweden. What's up? I am Jean Yeager coming in from Berlin. We've got Melanie practicing from Italy. Hey, girl, hey. And then we've got another Self-Tape Hansen from Norway. I just love that Norway is chilling. I just love it. Get it, you guys. Anna Victoria HC coming in from Venezuela. And then we have Josephine Croft also coming in from Melbourne, Australia. OMG, you guys. I love it so much. I love your international additions. I love when all of you are doing self-tapes in different languages. I love that. Love, love, love it. And I'm just so excited. We've got several more incredible episodes coming at you. You guys, keep going. And again, if you haven't done any self-tapes this May, just do one. Just start with one. Just put a tape in your practice this month, okay? This episode is brought to you by Brad Greenquist. That's Brad Greenquist, bradsclass.com. I know so many people who study with Brad to tremendous success. I really recommend him. Brad has a huge background in theater, still does a lot of theater, and can really help you adjust to using the camera to your advantage. Also, Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. Body and voice, ladies and gentlemen. You will work on your body and you will work on your voice. Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. All right, guys. I hope you have a real self-tape audition due, and I hope that you book it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
What about in terms of, looking at the camera or eye lines or props or anything like that?
So I think what's really important is to always read the instructions of what the casting director sent. They may have a particular eye line that they want you to use. If they don't mention it, read the script. If it looks like something that has to be straight into the lens, make sure it's into the lens. So find the lens on your camera or on your computer. If there's 3,
you have to know which one is the 3, so you guys know. Mine has 3, and I know which one is the one that I'm looking into.
Oh. Didn't think about that because now I just got the 12. Yeah. If they tell you to look just slightly off of camera, just look off of the telephone to the right or to the left of the telephone.
What about behavior? Because I'm getting a lot of people who are really scared of behavior. I'm doing like a Get Your Shit Together series that will have aired by this. And I'm talking to a lot of those actors just about their self-tapes and props, behavior. People are being told by some acting teachers, never use a prop, you know, always wear something neutral. Don't dress in costume. I know. And you have to like face forward and face the camera. And I'm just like,
I don't know who those people are. Those people are not auditioning people. They're not casting directors, whoever's saying that.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you so much, because that's how I feel listen, I'm booking off of tape and I don't know what to tell you, but I am in costume. I am using lots of props.
Oh my God, we love. Yeah. I don't want to say that's going to get you the job, but that definitely gets you the look.
It brings it alive, right?
It does. So we did a job. It's now on the air. It was a State Farm job. So in some of these cases, I'm confusing virtual with self-tapes, but it doesn't matter because it's the same thing. They're all in your own home and the scenario is the same. The great thing about self-tape is you can do it 20 times and send us your top 2 choices. But as far as your lighting and where to look and your props, all in your behavior, your attitude, all the same for both of these scenarios. So for State Farm, it's the one where she's taking a bunch of meat. She's at a meat counter and she's putting the meat up and she's giving the meat to Jake.
Yes, I know exactly. State Farm. Yes, I just saw this commercial yesterday.
Okay, they're airing all the time.
Yes.
And actually, even the other one, which airs all the time, the Parker one, where she's a pizza person. And they go to the house and so on and so forth. So with both of those, so the pizza boxes, people took albums, they took books. One person did run out and get pizza boxes, which was adorable, but just tried to be creative, and just kept stacking these things. Same with the meat. They kept putting books up on the counter of some sort. I loved the props on that job. I loved watching everybody's creativity. No one was afraid. They went for it. When you were talking about tennis earlier, I happened to take tennis. And my tennis teacher said, it doesn't matter if the shot goes out, just put all your effort into the shot.
God, I love that.
Go for it. Hit the ball. Don't be afraid of it. And it's the same thing with an audition. Go for it and have fun. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But most of the time, something like that will not be used against you. And we at ASG are prop lovers.
Well, I just think in general, if commercial auditioning is new to you, which I'm sure that there are people out there listening to this who are auditioning for commercials and they started auditioning for commercials during the pandemic. So maybe they didn't have a pre-pandemic commercial audition experience. So I just want everyone to know props in commercial auditions, it was just par for the course. They were always laid out. They had plenty available to you. And I actually took the comfort and life that brought me in commercial world to my theatrical world, and I book a lot theatrically. Even in the room, I would bring a prop in, even though it was like, never bring a prop. And I would walk in, and the first thing a casting director would say to me is like, oh, good, props. I love props. And then I'd book the job.
Yeah. Because I think the two worlds are intertwined now.
They are intertwined now.
Yeah,
that's right. That's not
and it's the same thing for pictures, by the way, for your headshots. I don't think that they're separated. I think that, the whole idea that a commercial headshot is smiling and, bright. It's just like, no, we want to see the canvas. Who are you? I mean, you're a great example of this.
Thank you.
You're very much a canvas. You can be molded into whatever we need you to be molded into.
Yeah. I always say my skill at looking good is just as great as my skill at looking bad.
Well, and you know what? That's really important. And it's funny how many actors, unless they're character actors, they tend not to understand that they can go that rough way. They don't show that they could be the homeless person or the junkie.
I'm with you. Yeah.
One thing that will be a change for people, and we tell people this all the time in our classes, make sure to start working on your prop box, because now you will be responsible for bringing props to the auditions once we go back in the room. We won't be able to share.
Move you right now.
And, I want to bring out, I hope people don't get scared off with the props. Just because we're asking you to do that doesn't mean that the trunk of your car has to be filled with props. There are very specific props that you should have on hand. A cup, a straw, a scarf, a bandana, a baseball cap.
What about a car thing? You guys always had the car wheel.
We do have the car wheel.
For me, I have a thing that holds my laptop when I'm doing something Zoom, and it's like a frame. And I just actually used that because it had my hands upright.
If that helps you, that's great. It's also, you can mime it when you're at home, for sure.
Okay, great. That's great.
Even something like, for instance, if you were called in, we would normally give you a football or a basketball. Bring that with you. We will not give you anything for the foreseeable future, for sure.
And also, just so actors know, if you're newer to commercials, you should have certain outfit things. Like I fantasize about giving like college graduates like a commercial audition box.
Yeah.
And it has like your blue Best Buy shirt and your red Target shirt.
Yeah.
And then it has an apron and a lab coat and some scrubs and just these things that used to be you didn't wear that stuff for theatrical auditions, but now you actually, people are wearing that stuff and booking with that stuff. So it goes for all across the board. Tell me about like booking ratios with people who like show up.
If you show
looking like the role,
looking like a role, you have a better chance of booking the spot, for sure. I mean, it shows, one, that you are a professional, that you thought about it, you put some work into it. You didn't just blow it off and think, oh, I'll just show up. Or, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people these days that now do their Zoom auditions or their virtual auditions from their car because they're out and about. God. And it's like, no. This isn't something that you're just going to phone in because you had an appointment.
Again, this goes along with being happy to be there.
Exactly.
If it looks like this is an inconvenience for you, then we would rather have called somebody else
Exactly. Absolutely.
Don't be in your car, you guys.
Oh my God! Do not be in your car. And if it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I had an emergency and I had to take my daughter to such and such. Okay, cancel the appointment.
Yes.
Because not only are you going to have bad internet connection, you're certainly not going to be focused, and your audition is going to suck, for lack of a better way to put it.
That's real.
It's real.
That's just real.
Yeah.
And
it's my favorite is when they go, well, I didn't want my agent to get mad at me and not be able to make. Okay, like I know it's important not to piss your agent off, but it's really important not to piss off the casting.
Piss me off. The agent is only a conduit to me. Boy, that's so real.
It's so funny.
That's so real. I would also love to talk about this thing I said about looking directly face forward. I notice a lot of us, and this is something I had to work on, and just so you guys know, experiment with self-tape may, experiment with things. Experiment with outfits, experiment with props. Try using props. Use them even though they're not the actual prop. Use books instead of a pizza boxes.
Exactly.
Just mess around with it.
You know, this is why people need to take a class, because this is the stuff that you learn.
Right.
We, as casting directors, in our performances and what we tell our session directors, we always like to feel like you've been coming from somewhere and you're going somewhere.
I mean, basic, just basic.
Very basic, because this 15, 30, 60 seconds is a snippet in your life. And if you look at trailers for films or shows, what make the best trailers? Those moments where you're capturing something where it's like, ooh, really?
Where
what
are they?
doing
What's happening?
next? Yeah. And so that's what a commercial is. Like, we want to know those moments. So, like, for instance, you just looked down and were doing something and then came back up. That's a great moment or movement from having been somewhere and going into something.
So real. And we used to improv in the room. We used to improvise and then get to the lines.
That's right.
And that was always sort of an acting technique, right?
That's right. Yeah. And that's one of the other things we have people do. And it's a little easier in the room than it is on a self-tape. But as far as movement and placement on a self-tape or in virtual, those are the same things you want to remember. Your benefit to doing these virtuals or self-tape is that you, for the first time in your career, are able to see exactly what we see.
For better or for worse, you guys.
For better or for worse,
Right.
what we see in the frame.
Yes.
and why we give you those markings in the studio. The only difference, and why I can't wait to get back in the studio, we were in for a week and it was heaven, is that we can zoom in and out, and we can pan along with you as you're walking along.
I just want to encourage everyone also to play with the frame.
That's right.
Because that's a big part of it. You know, coming into frame, coming out of frame, there can be some comedic timing in how you do that sometimes. Also getting closer to frame if you're doing something more intimate and going back from frame if you're talking to somebody else. These are all great things if you want to deliberately practice during this self-tape month. Practice with the frame and when you're looking at it, when you're in it, when you're off center, when you're in center, and just ask yourself, like, what does that say? What does it do? Does it help? Do I feel comfortable?
And with all those other things that you mentioned, which I will call the accessories to the audition,
Yes.
what you just mentioned is the key.
Yes.
That is the key to making a good self-tape or doing a good audition. If you can work with the frame, understand the frame, that's everything.
I mean, I just love that we just identified that.
Yeah,
because
me too.
It's so, to me, it's like, this isn't theater. And the way it's not theater is that there is a box with which the story is being told.
Absolutely.
And the camera is the gateway to that box. And how you use and move that box with your body and with space is part of the art form. And if you deny that part of the art form, you're shorting yourself from a fuller creative experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you just said that, because that really is it in a nutshell. And I want to mention virtually, because that frame is what's so important, one thing that is mandatory that you have is a tripod. A lot of people don't have tripods. You really need to be able to move the camera
up and down.
You need to be able to move it up and down and tilt. Because sometimes your framing and our framing are different.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if on Zoom or Hey Joe or Blue Jeans or any of the different services that they may all have different framing as well. And by the way, when we talk about framing, always horizontal.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much. Yes, always horizontal. And I also wanted to clarify for that, too, that it's okay for an actor in a virtual session to say, you know what, let me adjust my tripod real quick.
Absolutely.
You're a little, because I've been trapped where suddenly they're like, actually, you're going to do the slate standing, but then you're going to be sitting for the actual thing, and being okay. And I know it takes some courage. So I just want to ask Arlene for permission to have courage, that if I'm doing a slate or I'm doing something and it's different from how I'm going to do the actual audition, to say, okay, give me just 1 second. Let me now just adjust the frame. Let me adjust my computer. Let me adjust the tripod so that I get the right frame.
Yes, 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 and yes to all of that. You can do that. Keep in mind that time is of the essence for everyone.
Don't take forever.
And don't take forever doing that. And technology, the connection can get very funky when you're moving your camera around. For whatever reason, all of a sudden it has decided it's had to zoom or had to focus and refocus enough times that it no longer wants to have a good connection with you. And all of a sudden you freeze.
But I would rather people experience that in practice and go, you know what, if I move my computer, we're screwed. And so you're just always going to either get a new computer, get a different connection, or not move your computer. But now you know that.
That's right. Well, that is the key, Audrey.
Right.
You know what your parameters are so that when it's being asked of you, it doesn't come as some great shock. I mean, I always find it so funny to see people's face. It's because they look like, I've never heard that before.
Right.
Okay, well, you should have.
Yeah, you should be involved in your solutions of your current business
scenario.
Right.
But the other thing with that is if you're in a small space and you can't get a full body shot because that's what they're asking for, ask them, and it usually isn't an issue, can I flip into vertical for the full body and then flip it back? And make sure to take off the auto lock. So you have to take that off so that it will flip. For whatever reason, we tend to have problems with sometimes galaxies. They won't go horizontal for some reason, even when they're unlocked. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So now, listen, this happened once in one of our callbacks, and I really have remembered it ever since because I thought it was a fantastic thing. The connections were not great with some of the people. And the director said to the actor, Don't worry about the connection. Let's focus on your audition right now. And when he said that, it reminded me to remind you guys, try not to have all the other stuff pull you off.
But that's why you have to practice, to me. It's like if you wait until the important callback for the spokesperson for the next whatever sprint, and you wait for that to be the moment that you realize that something's not working, I can tell you from experience that you will be mad at yourself, whether that was in the room or out of the room.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And it's always better to get the lesson in practice than to wait until a job is on the line, reputations are on the line, to learn that, oops, you weren't prepared.
You can walk in to this whole scenario and say, yeah, but I ... I can't because ... Yes, okay. Then don't do it. Don't stress yourself out. This is not what you should be doing right now. But for those who do want to succeed and be successful and work, and by the way, it's here to stay for a while.
It is.
And it's a great time to have casting directors see you. Because honestly, I am so much more involved in this format than it feels like in the studio.
But wait, Arlene, wait. You magical shining goddess, you. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This next listener question is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. Let's talk about your voice. I mean, let's really talk about it. I want you to know that when we're talking about casting and we're talking about type, there's a couple of things where voice is really important, because it's not like I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a babysitter. It's like, no, what is your nurse? What is your doctor? What worlds are you in? And your vocal type plays a really big part of that. And if you don't have an awareness of what your vocal type does, what the story is that your vocal type does, then you need to take some voice lessons. And you need to get an awareness of what story your vocal quality tells. I have, you guys can hear, like a bright kind of chipmunky voice. And this podcast, but if I talked like this the whole time, would be a totally different podcast. But part of what I bring to the table in my casting is a brightness and an enthusiasm and an energy. And a lot of that has to do with my vocal type. That's one. The other thing about casting and how your voice contributes to it is quite literally your internal voice, your point of view, your way of expressing yourself, just a sense of awareness of how you communicate. If you think of your friends, take like 2 or 3 of your best friends. You know, I have a best friend who is crazy smart, and she sort of talks like this, though. She just talks like this, and this is a little bit, and she giggles a lot, and that's how she talks. And because she has such an adorable voice and vocal quality, it takes some work as a petite woman for her to get people to take her seriously. And that's part of her casting, is the way that her vocal quality is expressed, but also how then her voice, her point of view, her take on things, the way she expresses what she's communicating is also affected. And so sometimes to be taken seriously, she has to really own her voice and own her vocal power without really changing the octave or anything through her communication, so that she knows people aren't going to take her seriously at the first go, and they may not think that she's as smart as she is because of the way that she communicates and expresses herself. And so she just has to have an awareness of what that means, because not only does it affect her acting, but it affects the way people treat her, even in the business and in the world. And that's why people in all businesses, they take vocal workshops. They do things to work on their vocal resonance, because it's about a confidence, a vocal power through bringing literally your voice to the material, your actual vocal quality, and also your internal voice and what that means. And I'm telling you, voice class will do that for you. And if that sounds freeing to you, then please do it. If that sounds like that's really some next level shit, then please do it. Don't ride by thinking that having no vocal training is gonna serve you. It will limit you, I promise you. So Greg Saffel, Singing Lessons, LosAngeles.com. If you have a listener question, please call in 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hi, I'm based in LA and have a question about acting classes for beginners. I've worked in corporate America for about 10 years. I'm pretty introverted, definitely have intense social anxiety. So I'm wondering if you can recommend any classes with teachers for beginners, just a place where instructors are maybe patient and gentle, and whether talent is neither here nor there. It's just a place to get out and play and be social post-COVID. Love the podcast. Thanks.
Hi, I love this question. For anyone who is beginner and wants to just sort of like start to even just dip their toe in. A lot of schools have beginner level classes, which I really love. I know that if you are looking to just sort of play around, a really great thing, honestly, is just to take a level 1 improv class. I remember being in a class with 2 guys who flew in from another state on the weekends to take a level 1 improv class that I was taking. And they were in business, and they just knew that it was going to be really helpful for them in their professional life, and low stakes. And boy, they were freaked out. It sounded really overwhelming, but they just knew that the thing that it offered in terms of being able to think on your feet and play and have a good time and just express yourself during a pandemic, improv class is really great. I really recommend Tony Sepulveda's class at the Groundlings is super great. Tony Sepulveda, one of the kindest, most generous, most thoughtful beginning level improv teachers that you could possibly ever know. I've had some great teachers up there, and I think he's maybe one of the very best acting teachers I've ever taken class with. Also, there is a teacher called Art Cohan, and Art Cohan is remarkable with beginning level actors. He is really good at helping you feel comfortable and getting you encouraged. And they have, it's called orientation level classes. And Art Cohan is such a gentle giant and cheerleader, and the class that he creates is so supportive. I really recommend his class. If you want to do something like Meisner, I know that the BGB studio has some good Meisner beginning level classes, and those are focused on being present and repetition, all of that sort of stuff. I, Audrey, personally don't love Meisner, but a lot of people do. Like, they love it. So if that sounds exciting to you, or you want to dip your toe in, maybe even read Meisner's book, see if that's interesting to you, go take the class. There's also some really great classes at some of the theater schools that are beginning level schools. I would just take a look if you Google around and just make sure you find something that's for like level 1 beginning level acting classes. There are some really great places here in Los Angeles that I think you will feel very supported by. So good luck. Congratulations on dipping your toe. I love a second act actor. They are some of my most beloved and favorite actors, personally and professionally. So good luck, and I'm excited for you.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So I know a lot of actors really struggle with this concept of being too big, being too small, being more grounded, throwing it away. Every actor, I believe, needs to know in general sort of where their zero is. Some people are more animated actors, and so their zero is plenty. Some actors are much more subtle actors, and so sometimes their zero disappears. And sort of knowing that note of like, just keep it small, just keep it small, just whatever, just keep it small varies from actor to actor. But can you tell me in terms of right now what you're experiencing and what's filming, what's booking? What is the trend right now?
Well, I would say the one word that would describe the trend is authenticity. Being who you are. Don't try to be a character. It's bringing Audrey to the character versus creating a completely different character. Now, most stuff, I mean, you can look at Stephanie Courtney as Flo, and you can look at in fact, the progressive spots in general, which are over the top.
And she's been doing it, though, for 15 years.
She's been doing it for 15 years. And by the way, that's Groundlings to a T,
100%. Totally. 100%.
And I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
And Liberty Mutual is the same way. So there are products that are big. The comedy chooses to go big. I think what's important is, so when I say authentic, I mean that your headshot, there used to be glam headshots, or you would try to make yourself look the best that you could look, like a heightened version of what you look like. I feel like I want to see a headshot that shows who you are and what you could be made into. We're not going to take your makeup choices. We're going to get a makeup artist to do that. So it's really about what are you bringing to the role on an acting level. As far as comedy goes, I think that you should always ask the session runner when you go in for the audition, what is the sensibility?
But let me ask you this question in terms of on tape. I don't get a session director to say, what's the tone we're batting around here? I mean, I watch the commercials, so everyone watches commercials. Let's make that a thing that everyone does. What are some other ways that we can maybe get some information about the tone?
So I think if the casting director hasn't given it to you and you kind of need to make your own solid guess on it, your own choice, you're going to practice and do 2 takes. And the first take is going to be the one that you think it's the direction of. Never make it too big. Kind of make it where it shows that you understand the sensibility of the spot and the character. And then the second take, we often will say, make it your own, or, just give us a second take. Take that in the direction where you think it could work. If it got a little bit bigger, if you were able to make it a little bit bigger, you think you could really bring something to the character. If you made it a little bit smaller, you really think the tone would come out more. Again, it comes down to the individual actor, because if you think if I make it big and you're not an actor who can do big, don't go in that direction because it doesn't look right.
Yeah, I love that.
There are 5 other actors who can nail it because that's what they do.
They can do big.
They can do big.
That's absolutely right. And know what your face and body and voice do.
Right.
And if it does dry and sardonic and grumpy, like I have some commercial actor friends that they give a look and I immediately laugh because they do that so well versus, somebody who brings maybe warmth and kindness and caring and maybe a goofiness or something. And if you know that that's what you bring, but again, you find that out through practicing, through watching. If you can get feedback from somebody that's more qualified than you perhaps, that's always a good idea. So I love this second take option because a lot of actors are afraid to give a second take, and I love a second take.
Yeah.
Because I know you'll decide. You'll decide.
Yeah. Definitely do a second take. Don't make the second take
the same.
Don't make it the same. And the best take needs to be the first take.
Oh,
because we're only watching the second take if we like the first one. And then the second one might be like, that's not really the direction. This is great. That's fine. It's okay if the second is off, but you can take more of your chances with the second take.
I even do that if there's 2 scenes. I put the better scene first.
Absolutely.
Even if it's the second scene in the audition, I'll put it at the top of the audition just because the actual material or what I'm doing is maybe more engaging.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
They're going to shoot it out of order anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing, and I don't want to forget to say this regarding self-tapes, make sure that you send it in a small file, please. And please, please don't send 10 MOVs. Put them all together and send one piece, because we have to take those and upload them to a site. And it's very time consuming, and make sure that you label every single file that you sent. Label the file itself so that when we're looking through who submitted, we can see, oh, this is Audrey Moore's right here.
Okay. Great.
We don't care about your agent. If your agent sent it in for you, again, it's your name, not theirs. We can see in our email, let's say Rachel sent it in, uploaded by Rachel. We see that. And then we're like, what did she upload? Oh, she uploaded Audrey's. But then if we went to Dropbox, we would see, oh, here's Audrey's. And by the way, for whatever reason, we think Audrey would be better in a different folder character. So we're going to go ahead and move her.
We're going to move her to the top of the list folder, not the second row folder.
And that's what we do on our end.
I see.
A lot of juggling and puzzling and
categorizing.
If there's 10 characters for a job, we've got 10 different Dropbox numbers that we've given so that you're going into your Dropbox for that character.
I love that.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, you said at the beginning of the self-tape, should you be labeling it? And I thought about this the other day because someone did a whole big, spinny, fabulous. Oh. And I was like, ugh. Like, I just want to get to the audition.
The audition. Good. So I'm glad you told us.
I don't mind someone's name quickly being up there in the lower left corner or the middle or the wherever you want it to be. But we're talking.
But no graphics.
Not big graphics at all. It can be a dissolve in, dissolve out, type of thing. That's fine.
Yes.
And
they're like, it's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, Audrey, 2, 2, 2, more. Pew, pew, pew. Ford commercial. Okay, so final questions that I do for every podcast. First of all, social media, what would you like to plug?
I recommend taking classes at Camera Left, Stage Right, which is the teaching collective out of ASG Casting. And we've got several different classes for adults, for kids, and for teens. It's for beginners, advanced, those who want to brush up, all levels. And it's been super helpful. We're currently going virtually. It's been really helpful with virtual auditions, self-tapes, and overall acting, staying current and up to date with acting. And then also the waiting room. The waiting room is a contactless program that we've developed for actors to use when they come into auditions. They just pull up, sign in, and then they get the text to tell them when to come to the studio. No one has to actually sign a piece of paper. So it's very safe, COVID-friendly, and will help after, when we all get back into the studio, not having such huge groups of people in the lobby.
Gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
We all love that.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's checking each other out.
Right, exactly.
Let's getting mean glares from the girls next to you.
Those days of, 20 people in the waiting.
And it being so loud.
So loud. Who can think? Loud. And then you end up chit-chatting and not going over what the boards are. And
I know, yeah.
Follow us on ASG Casting.
Yes.
On
I'm glad you remembered.
And on a Facebook, and follow Camera Left on Instagram and Facebook.
Just so you guys know, ASG Casting is really active and has been so active on social media this whole time. I'm sure you've saved some of your lives.
They're all
go
saved.
Back and listen to all of them. Just like you listen to this podcast, if you go back and listen to all of those lives, you're going to hear bits of information. You're going to hear tips, things like that. She's talking to agents. She's talking to other actors. She's talking to all kinds of people involved in the commercial world. And it is accessible. It is free. It's social media at its best. And so really do give that a follow. Get informed, stay informed.
All of the lives are up on IGTV. And I did do a really good webinar with Sag-Aftra. It's on their site. It basically was a PowerPoint about making self-tapes.
Oh, awesome. Great. We'll link to that specifically, you guys.
Perfect.
We'll put it in the show notes for everybody.
Perfect.
Next question. Do you have any questions for me?
I wanted to ask you, because I think this is a really important thing. We talked about being a canvas as an actor. And, you understand what that means. And I think internally you even understand what that means. But how, as an actor, do you know how to make the choices of how to interpret that?
For me, I do understand that there are sort of core things that I just bring. And I bring those things through my face. And no matter kind of what I do to my face, there's sort of parameters that my face does. There's also parameters that my vocal tone does and what my vocal tone generally says. And then there's my body type. I'm also tall. I'm not super slender and I'm not overly curvy. And there's something that to me that body type says, is sort of what I'm working with. But within those parameters, I have done a lot of experimentation, actually, active experimentation to see how far I can go in any direction and what works. So if I'm playing a character that is maybe really cold, well, cold doesn't read as fast on my face because I have freckles and I have like a very wide eyes and I have a warm vocal tone. And so I have to go further emotionally to get cold across than maybe somebody who has facial features and a vocal tone that does that naturally. So it sort of is more looking at all of the things I bring kind of more like a light board of like dimming something or brightening something else and highlighting certain things so that the story is told. What is the cold really about? Is the cold about really showing that this person I'm talking to or about has done something wrong? Well, then that's the story element that needs to come across. And then how does my body, face, and voice do that best? And then how can I alter certain things like putting my hair up or putting my hair back, or certain things you can do with makeup of like giving myself more of a jawline, taking away the freckles, not emphasizing how wide my eyes are so much. If I want to look warmer colored makeup, curls, softer fabrics, things like that will help warm me up. As a canvas, even though I'd like for it to be a blank canvas, it's not. And so what is the thing that my canvas brings naturally? And then how do I dial up or down any particular quality for the character and for the role? Wow. And also trusting that you as a casting director, and this helps when I know casting knows me, trusting that like you know who I am and I understand like you're a personal shopper. And so I may be the yellow dress option in a sea of black dresses, but often the yellow dress gets picked and makes a big statement. And my job isn't to be the black dress. And I can trust that more when I know I'm like, well, Arlene knows me. Like Arlene's not like, I want a cold, rigid, frigid bitch. Bring Audrey in. So, but I can know that if I were to get something like that, I'd be like, well, she knows me, so she wants to see my version, and she's bringing in my version. And it's easier for me to bring my version of that authenticity thing you're talking about.
Exactly.
Because I can trust that.
And that is the definition of authenticity. Exactly what you just said. I mean, I think that that's so important. If your listeners hear exactly what you just said, they can really grasp and hone in on who they are and then have a much easier time with every script and audition that they do. And I love that metaphor of the lighting board. I mean, that sums it up completely. I love that.
It's how it feels is like, okay, in this one I need to be more compassionate, but also frustrated. Okay, well, my compassion goes very compassionate. So in order to get it frustrated, I need to, Audrey as an actor, get really grounded in something that's very personal and hot to me so that frustration comes across through the compassion.
Yeah.
I've got blue light really clear, but I got to go really far with the green for you to see the green.
And I think that's really an important thing to bring up, that, you know, if someone's ditzy or overly empathetic or bitchy or whatever they are, too much is not a good thing. It's you can be that as Audrey the person, but when you're Audrey the actor, you have to hone that in, just like you just said, and bring it with all the other stuff. Really important point, because there are people who come in and it's like, oh, let's bring so-and-so. She's kind of that kind of character. And then she comes in and it's like, ugh, but she didn't she didn't
Bring
bring
it
that to
full.
the character. You know, it stayed over there, you know.
Yeah.
And
To me, I think that has to do with the trust that they know you. And that's why I really say, like, making sure your agents know who you are, make sure that your headshots represent what you bring, make sure your footage, now is the time when you have to have footage, whether you've had somebody else make it for you or whether it's something that you booked, have footage that shows who you are and what you bring and what you do. And even still, sometimes I'll get an audition and I'll call a rep and I'll say, hey, they saw my reel, right? And they're like, yeah, no, that's what I pitched you with. They saw your reel. And I'm like, cool. Okay, great. And then I'm okay. Because I'm like, well, you can't have seen my reel and thought that the thing I bring is this thing that I think the scene is looking for. I have permission to get out of my head about it.
That's right.
And go, okay, if they want that, they'll find that. But they saw my reel and they're still bringing me in, which means they're looking for what I bring. And so I'll bring that.
Exactly. And by the way, speaking of reels,
Oh, yes.
looking at them more than ever online.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell
But keep them short.
like 2 minutes and under, you guys.
Oh, it doesn't even have to be 2 minutes.
Okay,
And-
I left. She's like, give me 30 seconds of your best.
I mean, if
and
we
we'll call
watch it
a
for
day.
4 seconds, I'd be surprised. But
I
just
agree.
enough to feel the tone of your humor, if that's what it is, feel the tone of your drama. That's all we're really looking for. And if it's a scene with Denzel, I don't want to be watching Denzel. I can watch him at any time.
I think it's also really great to say that the needs of your theatrical reel versus the needs of your commercial reel are going to be different.
They're very
That's
different.
Great. And is it okay if they have a commercial reel with the commercials they've done? Or would you rather a reel that's your comedy reel and that's what you'll use?
It's okay to put the commercials up. Unfortunately, they go out of style so fast.
Oh, for me, it's that I don't want it to be a competing company. Like, I don't want Ford to see my Toyota commercial.
Well, they're not going to see it because it's in our program, so they don't see those pieces. That's just for us to make choices. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but it is better for us to see a comedic reel or a monologue or, I mean, not that I love monologues for commercials,
Yeah, right. Nobody does.
something that maybe shows that you could be a spokesperson. Any special skills are definitely good. The good thing about the spokesperson, so like if it was an infomercial, forget about a monologue. If it was an infomercial, that's a good thing because it shows that you could be a host, casual, you can do dialogue.
That's
very
interesting.
big for us to know that.
Yes.
Especially when we do spokesman or wall-to-wall
Heavy
copy,
spokespersoning.
we can only see maybe 36 people in a day. We want all 36 to be good. If you want to be that wild card that we bring in, make sure to put that up so that you can prove to us that you could do it.
That's great. That makes me think about that because I've always been like, yes, where's my spokesperson?
Yeah.
And that's like, yeah, that's great. I love that. And my final question for you is what do you wish somebody had managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business many years ago?
Stay true to what you really want to do and what you believe in instead of feeling like, I wish I had known that I didn't have to be such a people pleaser. As a casting director, the people that I'm drawn to are like Marion Dougherty, which I recommend for everybody to watch Casting By, which is a documentary about Marion Dougherty. Being able to tell a director, no, I really think that you should go for this person because of X reason. And in commercials, it really just doesn't happen that way. Supposedly in television and film, it's not even that dramatic anymore because it's a money game. But I have found now that I'm older, I bring in more wild cards and actually my clients appreciate that. And so I would say even as an actor, again, stay true to who you are and don't be afraid to ask questions. That would be another thing.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. I have to say, when you can make this transition as an actor from being a people pleaser to being a collaborator, and it has to be authentic. You can't be like, I'm going to ask a question because that sounds better. Don't do that. Nobody likes those people.
Nobody likes that.
Nobody likes that person. But when you can feel comfortable saying, hey, what's the vibe we're going for here? How understated are we going? Where are we on the spectrum?
Exactly. Like they think that you know that.
Right.
And it's okay to ask if you don't. Because then you do something that you think it is, it's completely wrong. And they think, you know, I'll say this and it's not at all. But in their head, they're like, well, that person's an idiot.
Yeah, right.
Get the next one in here.
Or you've just wasted everybody's time, including your own.
Exactly.
And giving them collaborations that help you help them.
That's right.
In my experience, is always well received by casting. Again, it has to be authentic.
I'm going to add something to that I think is very important. And another thing that's been great with doing the virtuals, because sometimes in callbacks, the casting director is not in the room. It's a very small room, and it's a small space to have so many people in there. And now I feel like I'm so much more in contact with listening to the director and the agency, and again, listening to their collaboration and questions that when certain actors ask a question, it prompts the director to have to think about that aspect of the character that they just hadn't thought of, because guess what? They're not the actor. They're not an actor.
That's
just like you, the actor, are not a director. You can't read their mind. It makes them do a better job and a more whole job if you guys do your part. One of my directors rarely gives any strong direction in a callback other than obviously directorial direction, because he's assuming that when you come in, you're a pro at what you do. He may say, make it a little smaller, make it a little bigger, but he's not going to create that character for you. He's assuming your job is coming in, creating who that character is, and making his piece more whole because of that.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's just something that everyone has to understand, that we're all trying to make something great here.
Yeah.
Just like
it's
you said, that eating
collaborative.
food, that food chain of like, this person's trying to impress this person, who's trying to impress this person, who's trying to impress this person.
Totally.
And anything you can do to help be a part of the solution is always well received.
Exactly.
And it takes some practice, in my experience, but the more you do it and the more you see that it gets good results, then the easier it gets, and the more these relationships with the session runner, with the casting director, whoever's working with you, the director in a callback becomes more of a work session and more fruitful for everybody.
And I've been in situations, especially, on these virtual calls, sometimes it's hard to hear. On your end, it's hard to hear the director. And we know that. We can see it's hard. And we can see you guys trying to process it in your head. Like, what the fuck is he or she saying? And some of our directors are not great communicators. So just like you said, don't waste time by just asking a question, because nobody likes that. It's a waste of time. But if you're not 100% sure with what they said, don't be afraid to say, to clarify, what you're asking me to do is X, X, and X. And that's fine to say that. Or, so I see the product, I reach for the product, then I put the product in my mouth, then I spit it out. Let's say that's what the action is. And so they'll go, okay, so I see the product, I pick up the product, and then wait, do I go straight to putting it in my mouth, or was there something in between?
Right.
You can say that. That's fine. Just because you're trying to get
the sequence right.
Sequence right. Correct. So that's no problem asking things like that.
I got really great advice a long time ago from an agent who said, when they feel like they're in on your success, they root for you. And so when it is a collaboration, if I truly don't understand something, and I'm like, okay, so is it like I spit it out, not like I'm horrified, right? But more like, oh, what? Like, is it like, oh, what just happened? Then they're like, yeah, no, let's try that.
That's a
and
great
even if it's
example.
not it, just sort of opening up communication of what it is. And again, it's because so often what we're doing in the callback is different from what I did in the audition. And so I'm not going to assume, because I'm wasting a take. That's an important thing too. And I know once we get a take, I'm only getting like 2-3 takes. And so I'd rather make sure that I ask the question for clarification before we shoot it than to take a take and have it be kind of lackluster and then have the director be like, nah, that wasn't it. Actually, let's do this other thing. It's like, no, I want to be like, is it so this? And I'm like, yeah, no, let's try that. And a lot of times I'm like, so this? And they're like, yeah, no, I definitely see why you would get that, but that's definitely opposite what I'm saying.
Right.
So let me clarify further, and then I haven't wasted a take.
Exactly. Really good point.
Such a pleasure. Arlene, I've had the best time dishing with you about all things commercial and more. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we've got Kimberly Harden. That's Kimberly Harden. She is the casting director of so many things, including but not limited to One Night in Miami, which is the Oscar-nominated film. that if you haven't checked out One Night in Miami, I so recommend. And we talk a lot about the casting process, self-tapes, what to expect, and even just like the life of the casting director. You guys know I'm so about empathy, camaraderie to all of our creative collaborators, including and especially the casting directors. They are our biggest fans, our cheerleaders, and I have so much love for them. So Kimberly did One Night in Miami. She did Hustle and Flow. She's done like huge, Too Fast, Too Furious, all of that. She has worked for decades in this business, and she and I have a really thoughtful conversation about the casting process and how it looks now and how it has changed. So I highly recommend. I'll see you next week. Special thanks this week to Arlene Schuster. That's Arlene Schuster at ASG Casting. Please follow ASG Casting over on Instagram. I'm telling you, she gives incredible information. Check out Camera Left Stage Right. I love the women over at Camera Left Stage Right. We did a really great Clubhouse collaboration, and take the class. If you're already like a seasoned commercial pro, I'm having a lot of success with even hiring people for just some like weekly coaching. If I have a self-tape, even hiring somebody for like a half hour to sort of help me work it out, see if any of those girls are available. But really, Camera Left Stage Right, if you want a really good, conducive, collaborative, informative, and nurturing environment from people who are working and have been working for a long time, and also are session runners, the people who are the ones that bring you in and tell you how to get this audition going. They have classes online. I'm sure that once things are opened up and safe, they will go back into their room. So take a look, Camera Left Stage Right. I highly recommend. Follow them on Instagram. Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign with you do with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro. Theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it. Also, don't forget your pin, and don't forget your towel. Don't forget your towel, but don't forget your pin. Don't forget either. Towel or pin. Have the best self-tape, May! I'll see you next week.